It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video. And really, this is a follow-up video. So recently I did an update on NextCloud installation and really with regards to our free IPA series. But a couple of things I wanted to kind of point out about NextCloud and Docker. First of all, NextCloud is an incredible piece of software. A lot of people are looking for just file syncing, and if you're just looking for file syncing, it's really good for that. But there's other software out there that can do file syncing as well. But if you're looking for something that's really more of a suite of things that you can use, whether it's in your personal home, hobby, network setup, or at your professional office, university setup, it doesn't matter. NextCloud is really some tremendous software, and it's got constant development. It's open source. You can run it for free, or you can pay them to help you set it up and run it, or you can use their cloud-based services, which supports the open source capabilities. So there's lots of different options, but we're talking about today the home self-hosted version that I installed here on my home network. And right now you're looking at my CTOP, and you can see I've got NextCloud running and NextCloud app and NextCloud DB. So this is just CTOP kind of showing you what's running on my Docker install here. So I'm going to quit out of that for a second, and we'll just clear the terminal here, and we'll CD into my NextCloud install here, and we'll just do an LS, and you can kind of see what's happening inside of NextCloud. So it's exactly what we set up previously. So if you want to see the Docker install of NextCloud, I'm gonna link you back to that video down in the show notes and in the description, so that you can go check that out. But something that I ran across recently was when I was trying to set up NextCloud Talk. So if you're not familiar with NextCloud Talk, let me just show you what I'm talking about. So I'll just log into my NextCloud here. So NextCloud Talk is basically a built-in chat operations system that has video, audio, text, everything like that. So again, when you start talking about NextCloud, initially it was built out of OwnCloud, which OwnCloud really kind of did file syncing. It was kind of a Dropbox replacement. And the NextCloud guys kind of split off from that group and started their own thing. And they've built this out into just so many different things that you can do with it. It's got an email client, it's got a calendar client, it's got tons of other applications you can add on top of it, and plugins and different things. Very extensible system, but Talk is one of the greatest things that they've added, and it's been there for several years now, but it's really come a long way. So I thought, I want to kind of set this up and have my own chat communication system that I can use with my wife. And I was curious, would I get notifications on my iPhone if I set this up on my home server to have conversations and chat with my wife? And I do, but I wanted to kind of see what that looked like. So when you go into Talk, you notice it opens another tab, and then it kind of brings up like these conversations. So you can see here that I was involved in a conversation. We were doing some testing, and we made a couple of phone calls and things like that. So it's just me and my wife on the system right now, and this is all great. This worked fine right out of the box, just the same way I showed you guys how to set it up. But when I went to log it on my phone, I found that my phone, for whatever reason, I would type in my URL to my NextCloud install, which if you want to run NextCloud Talk on an iOS device or an Android device through the apps, you have to have SSL set up, and you have to have an actual URL set up to get a Let's Encrypt certificate. So I'm going to kind of go just through the whole process that I did to set that up. But the issue that I found before we get started was I would type in my URL, and it would move me forward to say, okay, log in. And I would start to log in to the application, and it would just give me the spinner, and it would just spin forever, and it would never actually log me into the application on the phone. And it never gave me any message why. There was nothing showing up in my logs at all for NextCloud on Docker. In my server logs, nothing. So I just couldn't figure out what was happening. So after a lot of digging, I found a couple of things that I had to change in my setup to make it work better, so that things would work more correctly. So I want to go through those things with you guys and kind of help you out, just in case you run into that, and maybe give you a little bit smoother experience in the process, so that you can do these things before you even start. So a couple of things that you have to dig to find these answers is just some setup and some configuration files in the back end of NextCloud. So I'm going to start here. This is the NextCloud Docker, and again, I'll link you back to my video that shows you how I installed this and what things I set to get it installed at my home. Once you've done that, then of course you can just use NGinX Proxy Manager to create a URL and then point that to your NextCloud install. So when I did the video before, I don't know that I actually set this part up. I think I just used the IP address on my network to do it. But right here, all I did was add a host, and we can actually go through this process and just kind of do like we're going to do that. So when you run NGinX Proxy Manager, again, if you need a link to this, I'll link to it in the show notes in the description. But this is basically a front-end GUI for NGinX to create proxies to your different websites that you're hosting, whether it's at home, whether it's on a VPS, it doesn't matter. So when you come into NGinX Proxy Manager, you can just click on Hosts, and then you're going to click on the Add Host. And right here, you're going to type in the URL that you want to use. Now, there's different ways to set up this URL. So I own the domain routemehome.org, or if you're from Europe, I own the domain rootmehome.org. Okay, so if you're going to first use a URL, you have to own that domain. It's very important that you have that domain as your own domain, and that you can change your DNS settings to point to your home IP address. Now, if you're running this on VPS, of course, you'd point it to your VPS IP address. Now, what I did in my DNS, so I click on the DNS setup here. Now, this, depending on who you use for your domains, it will change a little bit on how you set up the DNS. I'm going to enlarge this a bit so you guys can see it. But you see I have these two records. So I set my @ record, my main record for routemehome.org. So if I just type routemehome.org, it's going to try to go to this IP address, which is my home IP address. So if I just open up a browser window and I type routemehome.org, it's going to give us the congratulations screen from NGinX Proxy Manager. Because I don't actually have a page for routemehome.org, it just takes you to my home address, and then NGinX Proxy Manager says, hey, do I have an entry for routemehome.org without any subdomain? And it says, no, I don't, so that's why you get sent to this generic page. The next thing I have set up is this little asterisk right here. So this asterisk points to my same home IP address. So I just created an A record, and I'll show you exactly what I entered here. So I hit Add, and in the form, I select A for the A record, and I'm going to just type asterisk, and it's going to point to my home IP address, which is this IP address right here. And then I'm going to tell it I want this thing to update, and I always go custom, and I just take off the 3, and then 600 seconds is 10 minutes. You click Save, and when you do that, you get an entry like this. You have an A record that points asterisk, which this means wildcard. So anything that is a subdomain of routemehome.org is going to go here, which is my home IP address. So if I type in anything at all, it doesn't matter, it's going to try to go to my home IP address. If I type in just a test.routemehome.org, I'm still going to get the congratulations screen because there's no entry in NGinX Proxy Manager that says, hey, this is something that should go somewhere. But I did create analytics.routemehome.org. So when it gets to NGinX Proxy Manager, it goes, oh, I see an entry for that, and I know where to send you for that request. So by setting that up, I can basically, on the fly, create subdomains here in the NGinX Proxy Manager part. And when I go to that subdomain after I've saved it, my NGinX Proxy Manager says, oh, I know where to send you. So I created one that's just called mycloud.routemehome.org. And originally I said here, that needs to point to our Docker 0 address, which is 172.17.0.1. And it needs to point to that on our port that we set up, which was 8670. And then I said block normal things, make sure we have WebSocket support turned on, and then we saved that. Now if I save that right now, it's going to tell me, hey, you already have that entry. But this is what it looked like. So we saved it, we tested it, made sure it went, and that's great. Then we jumped over and we said, you know what, I want an SSL certificate as well, and I'm going to force SSL. And then I gave it my email address and I agreed, and we hit save, and it gave me SSL. So after we did all of that stuff, this is what we ended up with right here. And I could go and show you, just like I did a while ago on my NextCloud server, that I could get to NextCloud. And we were able to set this up even with our free IPA to give access to new users to this NextCloud instance. What happened was later I said, you know what, I want to try out Talk. And when I tried out Talk on the browser, it worked fine. But when I tried to add my phone to it, that's where I ran into an issue. So after some digging, I found that there's a few things that we need to set up additionally. So first, we need to change the way that we have our NGinX proxy manager set up. So you see here now that it's no longer 172.17.0.1, but instead it's this IP address 172.26.0.1. Now you might be saying, okay, where'd you get that from? Well, there's a couple of ways you can do this. So the first way is through the terminal with your Docker commands. So you can do Docker network and then ls. So this is going to list out your Docker networks, and I show you this in the other video that we're doing when we're looking for the free IPA stuff. But Docker network ls, or when we're setting up NextCloud. And right here I see this NextCloud default, which is my network. So I want to say Docker network, and I believe it is info NextCloud default. Let me see if I typed this in the wrong direction. Oh, it's inspect. It's not info. That's my bad. So it's Docker. So let's clear this out. Docker network inspect NextCloud default. And when you do this, you're going to get this kind of JSON readout. And the thing I'm looking for, so this shows me my NextCloud DB. So this is 172.26.0.2. And then up here, I've got the gateway. So here I'm looking for the gateway to get to my app. So I'm going to type in this gateway address, 172.26.0.1, which you see right there. So that's one way to find it. So you can go out and type in Docker network ls and see all your networks. So that's up here. And then Docker network inspect, whichever your network name is, and that's going to show you this JSON readout. And then you want to find the gateway information. So you're just looking for the gateway address, NextCloud default, and that's your gateway right here. Okay. And then once we get that information, we can go back into our NGinX proxy manager and we can actually set up that address. Now the other way to do this is we can go in through Portainer. So if you're running Portainer, and if you don't know about Portainer, again, I'll link to the video in the show notes in the description so you can figure out how to get it set up. It's a really, really great program that if you don't like all the terminal stuff for Docker, this thing gives you so much access to all of your Docker containers. It's just really a great tool. I really like it. And there's some other programs coming out, but I really like Portainer. But I'll check out some of the other ones soon. But I'm going to click on local here. I'm going to go into this and I'm going to find my NextCloud app 1 right here. And I'm going to click into it. I'm just going to scroll down and I'll see that it's got this 172.26.0.1 as my gateway address. So I'm just going to put in that 172.26.0.1 and then I'm going to put my port on it, of course, inside of NGinX Proxy Manager. And so if you want to change it, you just go in here, you click Edit, and you're going to change this IP address right here. You don't even have to change the port if you already set this up before. So you just change the IP address from what I showed you previously to this. You still see I have block common exploits and WebSockets enabled. And then over here on SSL, I did turn on, so one other thing you want to do, so change that IP address. The next thing you want to do is turn on HSTS enabled. So come over to the SSL tab and just make sure this is enabled and then hit save. And when you do that, it's going to update everything in the background for NGinX for you, and you're ready to kind of rock and roll with this part. So part 1 is done. You'll get further now if you try to use the iOS app to log in, but if you're still hitting a wall, which I was, there's one more thing you have to do because it's kind of a weird thing. Now you can do this either through Portainer, which is my preferred method. So we're going to go back to our containers, and you need to make a change to a configuration file on the NextCloud side. So you're going to click on this, you're going to find NextCloud app 1 and you're going to click on this little terminal looking arrow. And then right here, this is the beauty of Portainer. You're going to click connect, and this is going to put you into a terminal session inside of the container so that you can actually work on the files that are inside the container. Now if you want to do this through the terminal, you can absolutely do it. So we'll clear this out again. So to do this, you're going to actually type in docker exec, so exec, and then hyphen it space, and then you got to type in the name of your container that you want to enter. So NextCloud _app _1, and then /bin/bash. Now Make sure you type in the name of the container that is your NextCloud container. It may have a slightly different name for some reason. Just make sure you type in the correct one, and then /bin/bash, and when you hit enter, it's going to put you inside of the container. So here we are again, right inside the container. You can do ls here, but I like to do this just straight through Docker just because it makes it really easy. Now, if I make this a little bigger, there we go. We'll get the font a little bit bigger for you guys. I can't make it too big or it's just going to mess up the screen, but we can do ls, and you can see it's the same thing. So we're looking at the same view no matter which way we do this. Now for you guys, because I'm recording, I'm going to go back to this because my font is a little bit bigger. It's a little bit easier to see. But just know you can do that straight up through Portainer, and it's a little bit quicker, a little bit easier in my opinion. What we're going to do is we're going to go cd config. So right here is this folder called config. So we're going to move into that folder, and we're going to do an ls. And right here we need to make an edit to this file config.php. And we're just going to add 2 lines to this file. So I'll show you those lines. So we're going to do nano config.php. And we're just going to scroll all the way to the bottom. Now you probably won't have these lines yet. It'll probably stop right here. This will probably be your last line, and if it is, just move your cursor out here to the end right after the comma and hit enter. And when you hit enter, you're going to add these 2 lines right here. So you're going to add open single quote force SSL, all lowercase all together, close single quote, space, and then the equal sign and the greater than arrow, space true, and then comma. Then hit enter, go to the next line, move in a couple of spaces, and then hit open single quote, and then overwrite protocol. So make sure you spell this correctly. So look at how it's spelled right here, and I'll have this again in the show notes in the description if you want to just go copy it and paste it. Overwrite protocol, and then close single quote, space equal sign greater than sign, space open single quote, HTTPS, close single quote, and then a comma. And then you're just going to save, and you're going to exit, and you'll be ready. And you can save with Control O and then enter, and then you can exit with Control X out of Nano. So we'll do Control O, make sure it's got config.php as the name, hit enter, and then Control X to exit, and you're back out of that. And you can type exit to get out of the Docker shell, so you're out of Docker now. So now we've set those things up, everything's set. In order to make that work, all you need to do is kill the app on your phone if you were already trying and it was failing, and now restart the app, type in the address of your actual NextCloud install, and then put in your credentials and grant access to the NextCloud app, and you'll be set up and running. And then you can get actual messages through NextCloud, and you can actually see that those things pop up, and you get notifications and everything like that. So it's really great. I wanted to cover this because it did take me a little while to kind of find all the little pieces in various different places from various different people and get it fixed. But I'll tell you now, if you have questions, if you're having issues with NextCloud, go over to help.nextcloud.com. They have a community there that is just great. Like the day that I posted my question, I started getting help. So if you go to help.nextcloud.com, it'll bring you to their community. Now I'm already logged in. Of course, you'll want to create a login and an account and everything. I had an account already. But I mean, just tons and tons and tons of information and really great people here that you can talk with and ask questions and stuff like that. If you look here, there's 51 new questions or 51 new responses to things. So that's just since I was here a couple of days ago. I mean, really just tremendous stuff going on with NextCloud. So if you haven't tried it and you want to try it, I suggest you get out there and give it a shot. Use Docker, get it all set up. But I'll link you back to my original video, and then you can come back to this one to check out anything you need to do to kind of fix things up. I hope this was helpful to you guys. I want to say thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon and to all my subscribers. You guys just make it so worth it for me to keep making these videos. I hope that these things are helpful to you, and I hope that you're finding solutions to problems that you have, and hopefully you're finding solutions to problems you might have had and don't have now because of these videos. But truly, truly, thank you so very much for subscribing and for watching. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe, click the little bell icon to get notifications about new videos, and give me a thumbs up because that tells YouTube that I'm doing a good job. I really appreciate that more than you know. So truly, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next week.